All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Blackburn News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? We are live on Callin. We're live on Rockfin. And we're live on YouTube. How y'all doing? Thanks for hanging out with me today. Good to see you. Man, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about the UV is like 10 or 11. You know that even 8 is very high. 10, 11 is super high. And but we're seeing the reports of these high UV levels all the time. Why? Because we've shredded the ozone layer with all the delicious things we've been putting in the atmosphere for decades. But no, humans can't possibly have an effect on the planet. Okay. Oh man, I saw this, a friend of mine sent this to me this morning. And this is kind of, I don't know. This is all over the place. What is it? Jason Burmis talks about this on another, what's the term? Signature reduction or something like that. I'm not saying this is exactly what it is, but signature reduction is more like people posing. But actually, it kind of is. People posing as one thing, but actually acting as another thing, right? And so, and this is often why I do take to task other alternative journalists that are out there that seem capable of seeing, you know, the truth about things, but incapable of seeing the truth about other. Maybe that's just partisan. Maybe that's just partisan hackery. I don't know. Or partisan blinders. We'll even call it that. We won't even call it hackery. We'll just call it partisan blinders. But why I take certain platforms to task for saying the things that they're saying is because, anyways, well, let me finish my point. My point is this. All kinds of industries, corporations have all kinds of money to spread around to misinform people for their benefit. And probably the largest, most powerful entity on earth is the fossil fuel entity, right? Because without fossil fuels, our civilization as we know it goes away. It's not even possible, achievable without all the fossil fuels that we use. So they are, if not the wealthiest, the most powerful, right? Because everybody depends on fossil fuels. Everything relies on fossil fuels. Mama, don't take my fossil fuels away. Because if you do, it's going to be real ugly real quick. So the fossil fuel lobby, the fossil fuel industry is probably the most powerful on the planet. And if it's not, it's right up there in the top, it's in the top. Very powerful. And they absolutely need to, and they've shown this, their own documents, their own internal studies and investigations show that they know that they're destroying the planet. And their answer to that was not to actually stop what they're doing or minimize what they were doing or react, in in a caring, compassionate, common sense kind of way, but was to react in a psychopathic way, which is like, well, we've just got to convince people that this isn't happening so that we can carry on destroying the planet. That was their response. And I suspect that even, that they are funding in some part, they're funding all sides of the argument, all sides of the debate. Climate change is real, but we can fix it with renewables. Climate change is real, but if we do these certain things, we can fix it. Or climate change is straight up a debate, or there is no climate change. Climate change is a hoax. They're funding all sides of that debate. And if you think that they're not funding some people that pose as, well, I'm just a lowly, struggling alternative journalist out here trying to give you the truth, but also telling you that climate change is absolutely a hoax. If you don't think that I'm not saying they're all, I really enjoy and consume the work of many alternative journalists that I think are doing great work in the world and in the space. But if you don't think that a couple of those, or a handful of those people that look like, hey, I'm, just out here just trying to do the Lord's work, spreading the good word of truth, if you don't think that a couple of those people are funded by fossil fuel people, right? Because what a great cover. What a perfect cover. Oh, I'm just here just doing, I'm just doing just doing this for the love, for the truth, and for the honesty, and I don't make any money on this, and I'm just struggling, and I'm just a scrappy dude out here with a computer. That's a great cover for funding. Climate change is a hoax, and what we need is more clean, cheap, reliable energy, right? It has to make you wonder. And the fact is that there's all kinds of these double agents out there. There's all kinds of these people out there posing as something that they are not, to steer the message in a particular way. It's all over social media. It's all over, right? There are bots and trolls all over social media going like, dude, carry the narrative forward. And if you don't, you're a fascist or a Russian agent. You're a kook. You're a conspiracy. They start with the name calling, right? You're a wild-eyed loony. You're a tinfoil hatter. You're a nutbag. Blah, blah, boop, blah, bang. They're all over the place, and they're all on all sides of the message. They're all on all sides of every message. And so I know that sounds confusing. Knowing that, it can be confusing, like who's telling the truth, for the most part, I think people instinctually can get a feel for who's, a real person and who's not. They can get a feel for, who's telling the truth and who's not. So, you do what you can. You find, you go with what, the best that your judgment can afford you. Anyways, that was a long-winded opening here. But this is an interesting article from Mother Jones. More than 1,500 U.S. fossil fuel lobbyists serve as double agents. They work for liberal cities, colleges, green groups, and major polluters. More than 1,500 lobbyists in the U.S. are working on the behalf of fossil fuel companies, while at the same time representing hundreds of liberal-run cities, universities, technology companies, and environmental groups that say they are tackling the climate crisis, The Guardian can reveal. Wow. Whoa. On some levels, this does point. The other difficult thing, too, is people on the right, conservatives, people that are generally skeptical of climate change, can factually point out that, like, hey, there's like big money behind the groups that are trying to steer you to a specific answer, a solution about climate change. Didn't we just read about that? We just talked about that a week ago. That they're going to censor people that don't go, support the narrative of like, well, if we only electrify the grid, if we just get renewable energy going, if we get more wind and solar farms going, if we buy more electric cars and fuel and efficient stoves, efficiency stoves, blah blah blah, right? That is an official narrative of like how we're going to tackle climate change, but all of that we know is actually going to exacerbate climate change and make it worse. And all of that is for profit. And so there are a lot of pundits and journalists on the side of like, well, I don't believe this climate change thing or, whatever. And but they're pointing out that these people, with nefarious schemes and plans and plots are trying to drive you to a specific solution. Well, and I'll play a clip of Tucker Carlson kind of pointing this out today. And he does actually correctly point it out. I don't like the wording because they call it climate alarmists because, well, you should be alarmed about the climate. Actually, I think that that's a misnomer. Climate alarmists are trying to steer you into these solutions. Well, it's not that alarming then if there's a solution. Yeah, climate's really bad. You got to go over here and buy an electric car or buy this, efficient stove, or you can't cook pizzas anymore. You can't grow food. These farmers, we got to kick these farmers off the land. Well, and then we'll solve climate change. That's not real alarmism. That's just, using something as leverage to get, climate change is really bad. We got to do these things that are not really helpful for the climate. They call them climate alarmists. We call them hopium-filled kooks, right? Well, if you just do this thing, we can fix climate change. That's not real. Real alarmism is they don't. Some people don't even know what real alarmism is. Real alarmism is like, well, we're screwed. We're going to see 3 or 4 C of heating, and good luck to us all, because there's no fixing that. And there's probably not even any adapting to that. Even to the people that are like, well, we're not going to stop it, so we've got to adapt to it. Well, good luck with that too. More than 1,500. Oh, well, sorry, I read that. Lobbyists for oil, gas, and coal interests are also employed by a vast sweep of institutions, ranging from the city governments of Los Angeles, Chicago, and Philadelphia. Wow. Tech giants such as Apple and Google, more than 150 universities, some of the country's leading environmental groups, and even ski resorts seeing their snow melted by global heating. I mean, this is, did you expect anything less? I'm sure many of you are like, no, duh, tell me more. The breadth of fossil fuel lobbyists' work for other clients is captured in a new database of their lobbying interests, which was published online on Wednesday. It shows the reach of state-level fossil fuel lobbyists in almost every aspect of American life, spanning local governments, large corporations, cultural institutions such as museums and film festivals, and advocacy groups, grouping together clients with starkly contradictory aims. For instance, State Farm, the insurance company that announced in May it would halt new homeowner police policies in California due to the catastrophic risk of wildfires worsened by the climate crisis, employs lobbyists that also advocate for fossil fuel interests to lawmakers in 18 states. Meanwhile, Baltimore, which is suing big oil firms, this is a wild one here, suing big oil firms for their role in causing climate-related damages, has shared a lobbyist with ExxonMobil, one of the named defendants in the case. Syracuse University, a pioneer in the fossil fuel divestment movement, has a lobbyist with 14 separate oil and gas clients. Playing both sides of the fence, right? They're not really invested in divestment. They're not really serious about this. And they can't be. They can't be, because if you actually look at what the answers need to be, if somebody said, how do we fix this? And you tell them the answer, they'll be like, no, we're absolutely not doing that. That would be the end of our institution. That would be the end of our economic system. That would be the end of my ability to enrich myself for the next 30 years of my life. That would negate all of the hopes and plans and dreams that we have put on industrial civilization to carry us forward in a glorious way. Oh, we can't do that. It's incredible that this has gone under the radar for so long. As these lobbyists help the fossil fuel industry wield extraordinary power, said James Browning, a former Common Cause lobbyist who put together the database for a new venture called F-. Many of these cities and counties face severe costs from climate change, and yet elected officials are selling their residents out. It's extraordinary. No duh. No duh. And when you have an entire swath of journalists, including alternative journalists, that are telling you, like, I don't know about this climate change thing. I think it's a hoax. You have this incessant, constant, ridiculing of climate change and climate crisis and people who believe that climate change is happening. That's pretty convenient too, isn't it? Ain't it? Pretty convenient to the fossil fuel industry. Pretty convenient to a major conglomerate. A major, probably the biggest arm of the vampire squid that is sucking the earth dry. Very convenient to them. Right? We can call out the big pharmas. We can call out the big, whoever. The WEF and all the people. But, man, I don't hear one word about, the fossil fuel, the biggest arm. You can call it the military-industrial complex, but you can't call out or even talk about the fossil fuel industry. And they never do. They never do. And I go, my eyebrow goes way so far up, it's on the back of my neck. The worst thing about hiring these lobbyists is that it legitimizes the fossil fuel industry, Browning added. They can cloak their radical agenda and respectability when their lobbyists also have clients in the arts or city government or with conservation groups that normalizes something that is very dangerous. The searchable database created by compiling the public disclosure records of lobbyists up to 2022 reveals some of the most progressive-minded cities in the U.S. employ fossil fuel lobbyists. Sure. Chicago shares a lobbyist with BP. Philadelphia's lobbyist also works for the Koch Industries Network. Los Angeles has a lobbyist contracted to the gas plant firm Tenaska. Even cities that are suing fossil fuel companies for climate damages, such as Baltimore, have fossil fuel-aligned lobbyists, environmental groups that push for action on climate change. Also, incongruously, people do call this out, for sure. Incongruously use lobbyists employed by the fossil fuel industry. The Environmental Defense Fund shares lobbyists with ExxonMobil, Calpine, and Duke Energy. The Environmental Defense Fund. All major gas producers. A lobbyist for the Natural Resources Defense Council Action Fund also works on behalf of the mining company BHP. Yeah. Large tech companies have repeatedly touted their climate credentials, but many also use fossil fuel-aligned lobbyists. Amazon employs fossil fuel lobbyists in 27 states. Apple shares a lobbyist with the Koch network. Apple, the Going Green company, right? Microsoft's lobbyist also lobbies on behalf of Exxon. Microsoft, Bill Gates, the guy that cares about climate change. Google has a lobbyist who has 7 different fossil fuel companies as clients. More than 150 universities have ties to lobbyists who also push the interests of fossil fuel companies. These include colleges that have vowed to divest from fossil fuels under pressure from students concerned about the climate crisis, such as California State University, the University of Washington, Johns Hopkins University, and Syracuse University. Scores of school districts from Washington State to Florida have lobbyists who also work for fossil fuel interests. A constellation of cultural and recreational bodies also use fossil fuel lobbyists, despite, in many cases, calling for action on the climate crisis. The new museum in New York City, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and the Sundance Film Institute in Utah all share lobbyists with fossil fuel interests, as does the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and the Florida Aquarium. Even top ski resorts such as Jackson Hole and Vail, which face the prospect of dwindling snow on slopes due to rising temperatures, use fossil fuel lobbyists. Cities, companies, universities, and green groups that use fossil fuel-linked lobbyists said this work didn't conflict with their own climate goals, and in some cases was even beneficial. It is common for lobbyists to work for a variety of clients, said a spokesperson for the University of Washington. Spokesperson for the Los Angeles County Museum of Art said it had retained a lobbyist on the F-MINA database for a period during the pandemic. We are not currently working with the company. A spokesperson for the Environmental Defense Fund said that working for big oil is not in itself an automatic disqualification. In some cases, it can actually help us find productive alignment in unexpected places. Microsoft also said, despite its lobbying agreements, there is no ambiguity or doubt about Microsoft's commitment to the aggressive steps needed to address the world's carbon crisis. But the vast scale of the use of fossil fuel lobbyists by organizations that advocate for climate action underlines the deeply embedded influence of oil, gas, and coal interests, including to Timmons Roberts, an environmental sociologist at Brown University. The fossil fuel industry is very good at getting what it wants because they get the lobbyists best at playing the game. Roberts said they have the best staff, huge legal departments, and the ability to funnel dark money to lobbying and influence channels. This database really makes it apparent that when you hire under these insider lobbyists, you are basically working with double agents. They are guns for hire. The information you share with them is probably going to the opposition. Roberts said that climate-concerned organizations may get a short-term benefit by gaining access to politicians close to the fossil fuel lobbyists they use, but that the enduring impact is to simply reinforce the status of polluting industries. It would make a big difference if all these institutions cut all ties with fossil fuel lobbyists, even if they lose some access to insider decisions, he said. It would be taking one more step to removing the social license from an industry that makes the planet uninhabitable. Yeah. Well, it's eye-opening, if not completely. I mean, if not surprising. Yeah, that's a pretty it is an interesting revelation for sure. I found this other article. I don't know if I'm going to read it or not. While by the way, I have gotten some guys. If you sent me an email with something you want me to cover or some interesting information, I get the emails. I can't always respond to them, but I just want to let you guys know that I am getting them, and will bring the information to light as soon as I can. But anyways, this article is talking about how, the green commitment by fossil fuel companies is not matching their actual actions, right? I mean, basically this article says no major oil company is currently on the way to a clean energy transition. even though they all say we're working on a clean energy transition. Chevron and Exxon spending on clean energy was so insignificant, it was almost absent, said Trencher, with Chevron spending a mere 0.23% and Exxon 0.22% of their total capital expenditures, the money a company uses to buy and maintain its physical assets, on developing low-carbon energy from 2010 to 2018. As for Exxon's algae efforts, they're trying to make fuel out of algae. It turns out the company has spent more money on corporate advertising than on its research into the biofuel. $500 million compared to $300 million. Only BP and Shell met the researchers' conservative benchmark of spending 1% of their capital expenditures on clean energy efforts. By the way, I don't even think $300 million sounds like a lot of money to spend on anything. You know, when they talk about how much money they spend on various projects or infrastructure, you know, for $3 billion or $300 million or whatever, I'm just like, none of these things cost that much money. I swear to God. Developing algae, biofuel, does not cost $300 million. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you it probably costs a couple $1 million. Maybe 10, maybe we can go as high as 50 million. $300 million? No way. A lot of that money is just like a slush fund for whoever's, the companies involved in these projects. It's just like, here's $300 million. Here's a $300 million contract, And 5 years later, they're like, well, we're still working on it. You need to give us some more money, right? That's how this works. All of that is just a money go round. All right. I'm going to take this call from Joseph. These things just, anyway. All right. Joseph, how you doing?
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I share your frustration. Does everyone hear that hiss, or is that just me?
I don't hear a hiss. Does anybody else hear a hiss?
It's just me, no problem. What's missing are articles about what to do rather than who to attack. Like, the oil companies are an obvious low-hanging fruit, but I challenge anyone to explain to me how to build one solar panel without an equivalent amount of diesel behind it. It's like there is no alternative energy. There's alternative methods of convenience produced by the fossil fuel that we have, and that's it.
Right.
You and I can't live like we live without fossil fuel. It's just the truth. Right. The guys at the fossil fuel companies know that. So why would they invest in research that they know will not serve the results that's expected from the investors?
Sure.
And I'm not defending fossil fuel. I'm attacking civilization. I'm saying there's much more to this than just what kind of fuel are you using.
Right.
And I mean, as much as I pick on Guy McPherson, he's one of the loudest voices that said it's civilization, dummy, not,
Yeah. No, I mean, he's correct.
Right.
He's correct. I mean, McPherson's grasp of the things that are, the science and what's going on is rock solid. There's no, you can debate him on
certain
things, but as far as like the grasp of the overall picture, like, no, he's spot on.
Right.
And he's so spot on. He's so spot on that other people, it's really hard not to see once you see it, once it's laid out. And he's so spot on that more people are moving towards him than away from him, right? Like over the years, more people are agreeing with McPherson than not agreeing with him. Like, I don't see anybody coming out with like, huge scientific rebuttals to Guy McPherson.
On the base, no, absolutely.
Not challenging his assessment at all based on science and data.
Right.
Like, no.
Right.
you could say, well, this is my opinion, or he's just kook, or right. It's all, and it's always the, you can tell that he's right because you know people can't debate him on science. They have to resort to name calling or right. He's a kook. He's Dr. Death. He's you know whatever, a doomer. He's a whatever you want to say about him, but like they can't debate him on the science. So
did you follow him before when he was still trying to teach things in a natural setting? He went to some other country. I don't know if it was Bolivia or someplace before Bolivia.
Belize, I think it was Belize.
Belize, I mean, right. Thanks. But he showed how to do things with the lay of the land and he was learning as he went, and he had the same kind of aha that I went through and a lot of us do. And then the attack on his teaching started happening and attacking him like you just talked about people doing, calling him kooky. And I think that changed him, and he became kind of a nihilist for a long while.
Oh, yeah. Well, even that whole thing that happened with him, you know, the quote unquote scandal where some people came out, you know, tried to like, you know, pin a label on him that he was, you know, abusing people or something like that. I think that was coordinated for sure.
I don't doubt it.
I absolutely believe that was
yeah.
that was effing coordinated. You know, that had to be, you know, and that was messed up. It did mess him up. It did change him. It did make him like super, like it would do anybody. Like when you're met by some stuff like that, like you, it can really like make you very distrustful and very, right. You start seeing everybody out to get you, and yeah, I mean, sure. And I've been in those situations where you know people have tried to do stuff to me, and it does psychologically harm you for sure.
Kevin, the worst thing I ever did for my immediate, my non-human family, you know, and myself in social settings is write that physics outline. Most horrible, disastrous thing I ever did. And I don't have a voice like McPherson. I'm a nobody.
Yeah.
Right? And it still managed to destroy every facet of my life. And
Right.
it's amazing. I'm sitting here looking at it, you know, and identifying what you're saying. In everybody that speaks up, they have some version of the same story in various ways, to various levels. It's really amazing. And it's not just from the evildoers in the fossil fuel industry. It's your neighbors. It's your friends. It's everybody who doesn't want to face any kind of disastrous future. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's why, I mean, you know, just, you know, to put it really, I don't know. Yeah. And it's just a drag. It's just no fun, you know, right? And I think that people just have a hard enough time like dealing with life as it is when you bring in something like that is that heavy, hard to handle, you know, as an idea, as a concept. You know, it's just yeah, people don't want to really engage with it, and they probably will resist it on so many, you know, on many levels. So I mean, that's why I kind of just do this show, and I do this show. This is where I get to talk about this stuff with people because I don't really talk about this with anybody. I don't really engage in conversations with people anymore about this. I just don't. There's no point to it. There's just no point to it, and there's no. You know, you're not going to convince people of something that they don't want to be, that they're going to resist being convinced of, right? That they're not going to be open to. So it's just like whatever, you know. And it's all good. We're all here. We all, you know. There's this forum, and there's you know other forums for people to. Right, there's lots of places for people to kind of discuss that's going on that a lot of other people don't want, you know, that most people don't want to discuss.
So for your audience, for me, if you're talking to me, it would make more sense to me and be less confusing, assuming I don't know what I know from research or whatever, and this applies to everyone, I think. If we tie together a solar panel and a windmill and the algae project, that too, how much diesel will it take to keep the algae going if it were to serve a community? Because you can't do it without it unless you're in a specific location that's naturally made for the algae. You have to provide that environment. And each pound of concrete, same thing. It takes X amount of diesel to get the materials for the concrete, make the concrete, ship the concrete, and then it takes X amount of diesel on average over so many years to keep the concrete as concrete where you want it. And I don't think most people spend a lot of time thinking about that for every little thing we have in our civilization.
Right.
And I think the report you did about 100 billion tons per year being removed from the ground, not including the oil, I thought that was going to be a big eye opener for everybody listening. But I followed that report, and it never gets mentioned by almost anybody.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that?
Oh, I just invited William to speak, by the way, Joseph. So William, if you want to unmute.
Thank you so much. Hello, Joseph.
Hi, William.
God bless you, brother.
You too.
Thank you, Kevin. And I'm sorry to hear you were retaliated against too, Kevin. Did
I
you
mean,
speak out?
not about this. This is just no. That's completely something different. But I'm just saying, I've been in situations, previous times in my life, where, I don't know, maybe, and not even in some people have gotten it much worse, but like where, just being a victim of like public smears or whatever, somebody trying to like take you down like reputationally or whatever. And so I've just been in that situation. And so, and luckily it wasn't too bad. it was bad enough, but it wasn't, it wasn't so bad, But I think those kind of things you can weather. You can, if you just stay yourself, and most people don't, right? Like when somebody tries to come out and say, this person is like this, and a lot, if people really know you, they'll just be like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Like that's not my experience,
Yeah.
And so anyway, so Joseph, you were sorry, I right before William came on, you were saying, can you recap what you were saying again real quickly?
Oh, William's an excellent addition. I just would like to know how the average person, or not average person, now any person listening to this, how they already have an interest. William clearly is well educated in a lot of it. William, how does it appeal to you that we talk about the oil companies so much when every single facet of our life requires the oil and gas to have? I mean, I'm not protecting the oil. I'm saying we need a conversation that talks about what to do without it and what to do without the civilization we have and how to put it back where it came from.
Right, and we're having the wrong conversation completely.
Thank you.
You say, oh, fossil fuel, I've said that many times, like the
Me too.
Oh, we got to end fossil fuels. I'm like, do you even know what you're saying? Like,
it doesn't make any sense.
That's like it's the stupidest. Just stop oil is like the stupidest slogan ever. That is the dumbest name for a group ever. I'm just like, really? Extinction Rebellion was better. Extinction Rebellion was actually pretty great.
Yeah.
Right? It was like extinction. Yeah. Yes, that's where we're going. Rebellion. Okay, let's go for it. That was about it. That's all you need to know about what's happening. But like, just stop oil. Okay. I mean, maybe Insulate Britain is even stupider.
I hadn't heard that.
Insulate Britain is dumb. Okay, so what were you saying, William? Sorry.
Well, in response, Joseph, Kevin, you've probably heard me say, I believe in large part it's due to the misallocation of funds driven by our consumer motivated economy, like we talked about a simple thing. I know it may seem inconsequential in the bigger picture, but it's just one example. How many razor blades you need in the head of a razor to get a shave, and it's all about marketing. So whether we're talking about that or bicycles, how many speeds you need in a mountain bike. Now they've regressed back to 12 with, what I mean, the pro mountain bikes, but they got up.
Oh, they regressed back to 1. Right? Fixed gears became now's the thing to have 1 gear.
Yeah, well, if you're on the road and it's fairly flat and you're doing messenger delivery, because the fixed gear, you can use that also as a brake. And when you're stopped, my father used to own a bicycle shop, so when you're trying to stay upright at a light with a fixed gear bike, it's much easier. You don't have to put your feet down, and you keep your feet in the pegs for whatever reason. But for mountain biking, they got up to 30. Well, I can't remember because I got out of the business 2 decades ago. But let's say 28 speeds, if not 30, whatever they were up to. But now even in the pro mountain bikes, what they've done is they've taken that front gear and reduced the size of that and went with a larger range in the back. Now it's like a 12-speed cog in the back. So I have a 12-speed bike now, the pro top mountain bikes, for example. You see, in other words, it's all about, Kevin, like you talk about, driving an economy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Downhill bikes you're describing, right?
No, they're climbers too. What they do is a very small front chainring with a very large range in the back. Actually, a 12-speed cluster now with a thin chain. It's at least that's my impression. Although I haven't been in the business in a long time. I'm talking very expensive, high-end mountain bikes. Maybe I'm off on that, but that's the last I recall. But the point being, it's this technology keeps evolving around consumer production and consumption, right?
Did you see the thing? There was I can't remember the channel that did this. It was a Grand Theft World on one of the recent broadcasts. We're replaying a video from somebody who was talking about the creation of consumerism, back in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? Kind of with the ideas of what's his face, Freud's cousin or nephew. What's his name? The father of like the modern industrial consumerist age, the psychological. You know who I'm talking about? Anyway,
yes, but not the name.
Yeah, I can't grab his name. Somebody's gonna say it in the chats, I'm sure. But like, anyways, yeah, it was all they way a long time ago they developed the idea that you could keep selling people. If you make a new car model every year, a new washing machine. Every year you got to make a new model of something, and they do it with iPhones right now. You can see it with iPhones. Like, you don't need a goddamn new iPhone every year. Like you literally could use a 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old iPhone if they're even that old. I think they're about that old. But like,
were you thinking of Bernays?
Oh, Bernays, Edward Bernays. Yes.
The mental programmer of our age.
Yes. Edward Bernays kind of developed the psychology around, the selling people or shaping people psychologically to accept and adapt to, what we know now as a normalcy, right? But yeah, like, they developed a whole, the system of obsolescence, the planned obsolescence.
The first international planned obsolescence was Edison and Osram, all the light bulb manufacturers.
Oh, right,
gathered,
right,
yeah.
And it's a big conspiracy that the light bulbs would last for so many years, and they were like, well, we got to sell more light bulbs. We can't sell any more light bulbs. We sell these light bulbs that last forever. That can't happen. So they engineered them to go out.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, there's a story about there's like a believe it or not thing. There's like a light bulb in some state, I don't know, New Hampshire or something, that's been burning in this garage for like, I don't know, 50 years or something, right? this light bulb has been on for like ever. Because
Right.
they actually don't burn out. If you design them well, they won't burn out.
They use a lot more material, but they last a lifetime.
Yeah.
So that's part of this whole discussion we're having. That's a perfect thing. So the energy conserving light bulbs that they're pushing, let's they do consume less electricity per watt of output of bulb. That's true. But then look what's in the things and how long they last, and it's nasty because you're talking mercury vapor. I mean, all the stuff to make a fluorescent bulb and the circuit board under it. And there's a lot of heat, and they discount that because it's not coming out of the bulb. So really, you've got a bunch of lawyers designing the system that is how you're required to look at the system first and foremost, which undercuts any kind of scientific discussion you're going to have. I think CO2 has the same effect. Identifying CO2 as the singular
Right.
discussion point is
Right.
really disastrous.
Yeah. Yeah, the ideas they push out there for like what the problem actually is. Oh, CO2 in the air. Oh, just stop oil. It's like you're not even, you're misdefining the problem. Like it's not even,
Completely.
and then people are going on and on having these discussions about, CO2 and stopping fossil fuel and getting off fossil, they are driving the discussion in a particular direction. Yes, that suits them.
Absolutely.
Hey, I want to play this. If you guys can hang out for a second, I want to play this clip from Tucker Carlson, who actually is, this is pretty right on, even though I don't like the way that it's couched in the whole climate alarmism thing. But like, the things he's actually saying are true. Hold on. I got it right here. And before I play this clip, real quickly, sorry, because we're almost at the end of the show. Best ways to support the show, paypal.me/Kevin Sandblum. Cash, Venmo at Kevin Sandblum, Cash App at Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/Black Bear News. Okay. And all those links are in the description box. And sorry, just got to do that. Where is this clip? Darn it, I had it right here. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the delay. There was also a huge explosion at an oil derrick in Mexico, pumping out all kinds of nice stuff into the air while Mexico is like suffering under a week-long heat wave. Where the heck are my god dang? Sorry, y'all. I thought I had this clip like completely queued up, and now I don't. Where the heck did it go? I guess I'm not going to play this clip. It was like Tucker Carlson on and with Russell Brand. Did anybody see that?
I saw that.
Yeah, what'd you think about that?
I'm always amazed by Tucker Carlson when he does stuff like that I am enamored with. I mean, he did a great job, and yet he's still Tucker Carlson. Yeah.
Well, here it is. I found it. And this is what I don't like is it says Tucker exposes the climate alarmists. It's like, well, wait. Again, it's the wrong conversation.
Right.
Like you're
That's what I meant.
defining the problem correctly in a way, but you're also steering the conversation as if, well, they're just making this up. No, they're not making this up. They're just giving you the false answers for it.
What did you think about Russell Brand's responses?
Oh, I don't know if I actually saw that. What did he say?
I can't remember.
I think they cut off the
but-
clip before he actually said it.
Okay. That's why.
What did he say? Can you tell me?
No, I don't know. And it was
Oh,
the whole conversation was I was frustrated because of everything you just said, and I couldn't tell what Russell Brand was his take on it. out
Oh,
of what I was getting.
yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to play it real quick.
I see the climate movement not doing one thing that doesn't enrich or empower the climate movement and its corporate sponsors. Not one. So, for example, not to be boorish here and lecture, but I'll stop with this. Like, if I understand, the ecology correctly, trees are like helpful if you're worried about rising CO2, correct? Because they consume it and then emit what oxygen. So if you're really worried about climate change caused by carbon dioxide, you'd probably be planting a lot of trees. I don't see a ton of, and I would be very for that as someone who truly loves trees and spends a lot of time thinking about trees and have a lot of trees and maintain a lot of trees. I love trees almost more than anything. But, like, where's the nationwide effort to reforest the United States? I don't see it. Instead, I see a lot of solar panels from China that don't work, that actually wreck the environment, industrial wind farms that wreck where I live. Like, I live near them. I know what they do. They kill all these birds of prey. It's like they're destroying the environment, but they're becoming richer. So on January 6th, tell me one solution that doesn't make you more powerful. Yeah. There's not one. So that's an indication of bad faith to me.
I agree with him.
Yeah. I mean, he has a point. But
right.
but he's really just touching, just like he's touching just to, that's the other thing that's really frustrating about people who talk about climate change, who fundamentally kind of push that it's a hoax or that it's not real. It's so shallow. The conversation around it on their side is so lacking in information and context, right? Because they don't really know anything about it, because they don't want to know anything about it, right? And so it's just this real surfacey, super surfacey conversation about it. And I'm just oh my God, you're making people more stupid. You are not, you're doing what a journalist should not do, which is make people dumber. God damn it.
So
but maybe that's what that's what he's trying to do. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's maybe that's the intention. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
it's kind of frustrating when you find yourself agreeing with Tucker Carlson
yeah,
every step of the way, except underneath it, like you're saying, he thinks it's a hoax.
yeah, right. So yeah, when everything underneath it is, well, these people are crazy kooks. They believe there's some kind of climate disaster, right? Like he's saying stuff like that. And and Russell Brand, what are you doing? And on some level, like, I guess, I don't know. I apologize for playing that clip and not watching the whole interview. I would like to know what Russell Brand's response is, but
I would like
kind of like Russell Brand and Jimmy Dore are doing this thing a little bit where they're catering to this like super skeptical climate change point of view. When they well know that climate change is happening, right? They have always been in the climate change certainly is happening camp, right? But they kind of entertain this view without really saying like, well, what do we, let's assume there's a problem. What are we going to do about this problem? Since they're offering the fake solutions, can we go further down the road? Like they just do the surfacey conversation thing. I'm like, man, that is some bad journalism right there. That is some horrible journalism.
Can I weigh in on that a little, Kev?
Yeah.
Well, I agree with both of you. I always defer to Joseph when it comes to the science, because this is not my area at all of expertise. But regarding Tucker and someone like Jimmy Dore, Tucker, now, not to defend him, but you have to remember where these people came from. Jimmy's father was a cop. His grandpa was a cop, right? And he's a comedian. That's where he's coming from. And he's trying to educate himself on everything. And frankly, a lot of times he's way off on certain issues that I found disturbing. A lot of times he's right on. And the same thing with Tucker apparently came from a media background. His father was in journalism. Very super rich, wealthy person. So, what I'm getting at is like, I grew up in Trumbull, which was mostly an all-white school district, but I went to high school in Bridgeport, which was 70% minorities. What a difference in perspective that gave me on life. Just that neighboring town shift from Trumbull to Bridgeport. You see what I mean? And so I'm just trying to say, some of these people like Tucker, I think he's actually he's awakening on certain levels, wouldn't you agree? And Jimmy and Kim Iverson, and where sometimes we listen to Kim and myself, and I go, yeah, Kim, we knew that about 9/11. How many decades ago?
Right.
Thank you for, So
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, sometimes it may not be their bad faith, but it may just be their opening and evolving. I'm certainly see things differently around the law or certain things than I did even a decade ago, because of my recent experiences. So, but yet on the other hand, it doesn't dismiss your frustration, Kevin, who's been on top of this issue, like someone who's been on top of 9/11, or anything like that, witnessing Kim Iverson just put out a video on the possible demolition of the towers.
Great. That's awesome. I mean, bring it on back. Bring it back into the conversation. Right. But the, it's kind of like, was it Kim Iverson or somebody else was talking about? There's some guy who's kind of a climate denier. He's a guy that they all go to. He's on the East Coast. He's at like Princeton or Rutgers or somewhere. But I forget his name. Anyways, his reasons for believing that it's, for going the route he went, like to me were kind of not very scientific, right? Because he was like, well, I had all these colleagues who believed in climate change, and I disagreed with them because I thought they were very smart people about climate change, right? And then I started hearing different ideas from these other scientists about how it was not real. And I was like, yeah, well, okay. So you're going to listen to these arguments from the other scientists that believe it's not real. And your reasons for believing it weren't based on anything other than the people I know believe it. Did you actually go study, that? And did you go study the climate science they believe in? Did you actually go study why they believe in it? No, you didn't. Right? So you're giving time and space to this other concept without actually fully understanding the concept that you formerly believed in, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what Kim Iverson and Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand and all these other people I feel like are doing, are giving time and space to, a bigger explanation of why it's not happening, but they're not actually fully investigating why it is happening, right? They're not really talking about climate science as we know it. They're not really going deep on it at all. And it's like,
do you guys watch Star Trek? Ever, the old Star Trek?
I used to watch old Star Trek, yeah.
Okay. Captain Kirk there's a few episodes where you can catch him saying, a captain that's good has to know something about every facet of his vessel and crew. He can't be without a working knowledge of the system in order to be a good captain. And I'm fully agreeing. That's the problem. People aren't willing to look under the hood at these arguments and strain their brain a little to learn the science, because they're so, William, you hit the nail on the head. They're all in their little cubbies, and they're not supposed to have to strain their brain in that direction because, well, after all, I'm a journalist and I'm an established journalist. I just listen to the scientists. I don't know where that came from, but my brain would explode if I asked it to do that and just believe someone. So right. I don't really have a concept.
Right. Well, here's another. I kind of have to wrap up the show, but to end kind of with a quote. Oh man, maybe I can find this quote. Carl Sagan said something famously about, in the future we have all this science and technology, right? Very powerful science and technology, but few will understand how it works or why it works. And he's like, that is a very dangerous future, right? Because the masters are the ones that are going to understand how it works, right?
Exactly.
And these the people that don't understand how it works, or what's going on, have very little scientific. I God damn it. There was a there was a good clip of Bill Nye, like from 30 years ago, talking about cars. He's like, look at all these cars. Look at, I mean, the absolute power and energy it takes to make these cars and send them down the road, and the ferocious amount of power in an automobile. And there's just for one person to get in it and drive it down the road. He's like, this is insane.
Yeah,
This is insane, the amount of energy it takes to do this. And I was like, yeah, but nobody understands. Everybody's like, I just get in my car and I just go. And I don't need to know how it works. I just need to get in it and go. Well, that's the problem.
Can I even add a little to that, Kevin?
Sure.
One little, if you pay attention to how people drive,
they don't understand physics. They don't understand physics.
Right. Stop, go, brake,
Yeah.
gas, brake, gas. Like, you certainly don't work on your own car, is my usual thought.
Right. It's amazing to me how I watch people operate in life, and yeah, cars are a good example, but people just operating with no understanding of like basic laws of like, and that's why people end up on the side of the road, like in a big SUV, just because it's raining a little bit or whatever. It's just like, you don't understand physics.
Yeah.
If you had a small understanding of physics, you wouldn't have ended up on the side of the road upside down in your SUV. But you live and learn. All right, guys, I got to take off. But thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen, on the chats and calling.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with me today. And I will be back tomorrow at the regular time of. Oh, will I be back tomorrow? I'm pretty sure I'll be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. If I'm not back tomorrow, I'll be back on Monday. There's a small chance that I may just have a Sunday. But anyways, thank you all. And until next time, peace.
Thank you.